Okay, so I am here to test the robustness of the website. So one of the first things I want to test is the errors that can come up with data entry in the login page. That's the first thing I want to test. So the way my register function works is that it takes the values that were put on in these fields, and it will submit it to the database, and it will add it to the users table. However, I have nothing to validate that you can't have multiple of the same usernames. So if I just click register here multiple times, it will keep adding users, and I can log in at any time with those users. So there's nothing to validate that the username can't be the same as someone else. So that's a big issue, of course, but I couldn't really figure out a way to get around that. Um, Anyway, so I'll just register a different account and log in. So there's not much to break here. Um, all of this, the quiz taking part, it's all fine because there's not much data entry in it. But when you go to custom quizzes page and then you get to creating a quiz, the issues will arise. So I'll just um, open up the console real quick. Okay, so I can enter anything here, of course, and each of these fields are submitted individually. So it's not like I have to enter everything and I just click submit once. I have to click submit for each of these lines. And that's mostly because most of the data that I have in my database is put into different tables. And rather than having like one statement to put everything in it, I decide to split into multiple statements so it's easier to work on. However, an issue arises where if you do this, then of course it will add a quiz with this name, this description, and points. But if I just decide to leave this here and go back, refresh this page, and then the quiz is here, I can click on it and start the quiz. But there's no questions because of course I left the questions out. So that's one issue that in in the case that someone doesn't put any questions in or answers, it will just be left with an empty quiz that can trick the users into clicking on it. So I can completely turn this into a title that's like appealing. So science quiz. We can have a description of chemistry, biology, physics quiz. Give it like 50 points, and I submit this. And then when I go back, it's here, but there's actually nothing here. There's no questions to take, and the quiz can't even be finished. So there's one problem with that. There's also the problem where um, if you try to submit a question that has a question mark in it, it will not submit it correctly. So as you can see, I tried to submit a question and it says question ID is undefined. That's not supposed to happen. Like if I remove this question mark, all of a sudden now it comes up with a question ID. I don't know why this happens. I put the field for the question as a string, but it still doesn't accept the question mark, so I'm not really quite sure what to do about that. But that's another thing that doesn't really work as intended. Um, Not quite sure if there's anything that I can break in the answers, so I can add anything here. I can have multiple correct answers. Doesn't actually matter. I can add multiple incorrect answers. These fields are just to guide the user, but really they can enter as many times as they want. Um, so there's that. So I think that will work. Let's try it. Yep, here it is. Here's all the correct answers, incorrect answers. Not sure why this. Oh, so it does actually submit the question, but it doesn't give it a question ID, which means that it can't really work because when the answers are pulled, when looking at a question, it looks at the question ID. In which case, we don't have a question ID, so we don't know what the answers are to this question. So we don't even get any answers. So even if I put in as many answers as I wanted, it wouldn't appear. None of it would appear here because this question doesn't have a question ID. So can't finish this quiz. So can't add a question mark because that will completely break the data entry. So there's that. Um, Achievements in this case. Um, They're awarded just for completing quizzes, so really a user can get all questions wrong and still get achievements, which isn't really a achievement worthy trait, but it's not that I don't think it's that big of an issue. Now, one thing which I would like to talk about is the admin feature, where you can log in as an admin and then choose an event. So let's say I choose the event Christmas, and then I go back, log in as Sam. Of course, I get the Christmas background, but here's the problem. In a normal situation where a user does not have admin access, the way this works is it takes the sessions, the value of the event that's stored in session storage. But when a user that doesn't have admin privileges logs in, just give me a second. When a user without admin privileges logs in, they can't see the changes being made. These changes are local, so they have to know the admin logins in order to change the background, which kind of makes this irrelevant, but in a way it works. So that's about it. I think um, I, that's really all the checks I have for robustness. There's quite a few issues here and there, and it's mostly to do with data entry because I don't have much validation. And for the data entry, I do have validation, but um, some of it just refuses to work, or it just works in a different way, and I'm not quite sure what the meaning behind that is. But I think that's about it.